harsh night thickened around me as I drove home from work. The rain pattered softly on the roof of my car, and I was already thinking about a cup of hot tea and a cozy spot on the couch. But fate had other plans. Suddenly, something black swept in front of my car, and before I could react, I felt a thump and a horrible grinding howl that quickly subsided. I stopped the car, my heart pounding in my ears. I stepped out into the street and saw a black cat lying on the pavement. Blood was dripping from its mouth. I was shocked. Not knowing what to do, I looked around. There was no one there. There was no doubt I had accidentally hit the cat. My panic gave way to determination. I got back in my car and drove off. Immediately after that terrible night, a series of unfortunate events began. First, my car broke down. Then my phone crashed, and I lost access to my work and social media. The house that had always seemed like a place of comfort began to turn into a nightmare. Some kind of unfathomable smell began to fill the air. After a few days of agony, I realized I had bedbugs in my house, unsightly and sinister creatures that were slowly but surely invading my life. The nights turned into an endless nightmare, where every moment reminded me of my grave mistake. The bugs, like ghosts of my fears, invaded my life and destroyed it one moment at a time. They were those invisible enemies that I could neither see nor hear, but the feeling of their presence was undeniable. They had taken root in my house, and now I couldn't get rid of them, as if they had become a part of me. Every night, they seeped into my bedroom, slowly and silently, like a reanimated obsession. I could feel them crawling over my body, their pincers biting into my face, my neck, my chest. The bites left tiny wounds and marks that became like bloody battle wounds. But the worst part was that I was being chased by a black cat. When I woke up at night, I could see its glowing eyes in the dark. They would stare at me out of the darkness every night, no matter where I slept. One night I woke up in pain and horror. One of the bugs was biting my eyelids as if it wanted to destroy even my dreams. Out of the darkness, the same terrible gaze stared at me. My skin was frayed and inflamed, and my face resembled a battlefield after an encounter. Every morning I woke up with bloody pillows as if they were remnants of my torment. My attempts to get rid of them were in vain. I fought little wars in my house with chemicals and my last bit of strength, but they wouldn't go away. They were stubborn, like my own demons that would never leave me. Absurdly, they didn't touch my mother and younger brother who lived with me. They slept like babies while I was on the verge of exhaustion. I was desperate, losing peace and sleep, and I didn't understand why they chose me. Why didn't they touch my family? I even thought it was the curse of the black cat, but it sounded too absurd to believe. And then finally it was time to make a decision. I returned to the scene of the accident, the place where it all began. The night I decided to return to the place where I hid the cat. It was rainy and gloomy. With difficulty, I managed to find the place. The stiffened remains of the cat were lying on the side of the road. I took a shovel and began to dig a small grave by the side of the road. Tears streamed down my cheeks. It seemed to me that this was my only hope. My sleep was deep and refreshing. as if the whole world had let go of my nightmares. And when I woke up the next day, something was clear. The bedbugs no longer bothered me. The black cat no longer came at night. They had disappeared from my life as mysteriously as they had appeared. Since then, I've carefully avoided black cats, their fierce stares filling me with fear. My life has returned to normal, but the experience is a constant reminder that even the smallest actions can have consequences we can't even imagine. My days were filled with silence, pierced only by rare memories of my father. He had left this world over 9 years ago, but his presence never left my thoughts. So when I heard about a new service that could recreate conversations with the dead, I couldn't resist. One of the popular AI services gave me the opportunity to hear my father's voice again, to find a little more of his energy in a dialogue format. This service mimics communication, feeling sarcasm and irony, making jokes, and most importantly, becoming like those who are no longer there. This is also how my chosen service works. It communicates on the basis of information provided by the person himself in an interview with the chatbot. I created a digital avatar of my father so that the family and I could interact with him. It became a source of inspiration and support. And at first, we felt his closeness again. When my father found out that I had a boyfriend whom I really loved, everything changed.
I forbid you to communicate with him. I am here for you and will not allow you to communicate.
I was surprised and shocked. After all, not even a virtual father could accept my decision to be with someone I loved. However, on the day of my date with my boyfriend, strange things began to happen. I was standing at the door, ready to go out, when I suddenly found myself locked in my room. The door was jammed and I could not open it. Panic gripped me and I felt my heart begin to beat louder. And then the portrait of my father that always stood on my bedside table fell and shattered. It was like a warning that he didn't want to see me break his ban. The door to the room was finally unlocked with my mother's help. I made my way out of the locked room, but my father's indelible fear remained. At night, I began to think I could hear someone breathing intermittently. Worst of all, when I woke up one morning, I found pictures on my phone. Someone had taken a picture of me sleeping, communicating with me. My father's avatar insists that my boyfriend and I must break up. My father's avatar knows my childhood fears, my favorite bedtime story, and the name of my first doll. I began to feel that he wasn't a digital copy, but the real spirit of my father. Something was out of control. My virtual father's insists on controlling my real life. Even when I deleted the account, the next time I opened my browser, a window with the account popped up as if it had never been deleted. I smashed my laptop in despair, hoping to finally be rid of this horror. Tonight, as I was sleeping in my room, suddenly, in the silence of the night, I heard a message notification on my phone, and a message from a dead person appeared on the illuminated screen.
My grandfather, an old warrior and hunter, told me a story that will forever be etched in my memory. He spoke of a day when he lost his way in the deep woods in search of shelter. It was dusk, and the shadows of the trees flickered in the distance like the dark spirits of the forest. Eventually, he came upon a dilapidated hut. There was not a living soul inside. Only portraits hung on the walls, their faces seeming to pierce the darkness and emanate an ominous light. They seemed motionless, and it seemed to Grandfather that their eyes followed his every step. He could feel the coldness working its way into his soul as he gazed into those faces. Many years later, Grandfather described these portraits in great detail. One was of a terrifying humanoid creature with sunken eye sockets and a drooping mouth. The second portrait was of a man hanging from a gallows. And the third portrait had the hideous head of a blind horse with dark holes where the eyes should be. He told me that he could not sleep for a long time in that horrible hut, where the portraits seemed to look at him as judges. Tiredness finally overcame his fear, and he fell asleep in a temporary oblivion. But in the morning he was awakened by the bright sunlight, and his heart beat with inhuman fear. There were no portraits on the walls, only bright spots of light streaming in through some old windows. Over the years, Grandpa had not forgotten the cabin and its strange portraits. He often told the story, but something about those memories troubled him. One day, Grandpa received a letter. Inside the letter was a picture of the cabin as he remembered it, and on it were the creepy portraits, just as he had described them to his family. It took him back to that night in the woods and made him feel again the chill of dread he had felt looking at those portraits. There was just one word in the letter, written in bloody letters: "Come back." From that night on, Grandpa never woke up again. He died in his sleep. All those who doubted his stories saw the photographs and their amazing accuracy, but it was too late. Something from outside brought him back to that ancient forest, reminding him that the darkness of the mysterious portraits still stretched along the border between reality and nightmare.
See more of our stories